Every year, around November 11th, a simple but really powerful symbol starts appearing everywhere. A single red poppy.
We see them on lapels, right? In wreaths, at these quiet, somber ceremonies. But have you ever stopped to wonder why this flower specifically? What's the story it's trying to tell? Today, we're going to dive into the profound meaning behind Remembrance Day.
So, to really get a handle on Remembrance Day, we've got to start with its most iconic symbol. The poppy is so central to the whole thing that the day itself often goes by another name.
Yup, Remembrance Day is also known as Poppy Day. And that's because this tradition was born directly from the First World War. See, poppies were one of the only plants that would grow on the completely torn-up battlefields of northern France and Flanders. Their bright red color became this unavoidable symbol of the blood that was shed. And so now, the day honors all armed forces members from across the Commonwealth who have died in the line of duty, from that very first war right up to today.
Okay, but why November 11th? Well, the tradition comes from the exact moment the guns of World War I finally went silent. The date and time, they're not random at all. They're the entire point of the commemoration.
It all goes back to the Armistice of 1918, the agreement that at long last ended the fighting on the Western Front. Now, while it was signed in the early hours of the morning, the ceasefire itself was specifically timed for 11 a.m. Paris time. I mean, just think about that for a second. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Imagine that moment, a truly profound, world-changing silence.
And the commemoration started almost right away. Just 1 year later, in 1919, King George V held the very first official Armistice Day. But, after the world had to endure a second devastating global conflict, the name was changed in many countries to Remembrance Day. It became this solemn promise to honor the fallen from all wars. And this quote, wow, it just perfectly captures the immediate, profound impact of that very first 2-minute silence. A journalist for the Manchester Guardian described how the entire city of London just stopped. This wasn't just quiet. He called it a silence which was almost pain. A collective holding of breath for a world that had been changed forever.
So, what actually happens during these moments of remembrance? Well, there's this powerful and symbolic ritual that's shared across the Commonwealth, a ceremony that's really designed to be a kind of vigil.
The ceremony itself is just so full of symbolism. It starts with the haunting sound of the last post, which is a bugle call that signals the end of the day, a final farewell. That leads into those 2 profound minutes of silence. And then that silence is broken by the rouse, which is a call for a new day meant to symbolize hope and resurrection. Finally, wreaths are laid at a cenotaph, which literally means empty tomb, as this very public pledge to always remember.
But while that core ritual is something that's shared, the way this day is officially observed, well, it actually varies quite a bit around the world.
And here's where we see a really fascinating contrast. In the UK, the main public ceremonies are actually held on the nearest Sunday, which is known as Remembrance Sunday. In Canada, November 11th is a statutory holiday for most people, but then you look at Australia and New Zealand, and for them, their biggest day of war commemoration is actually Anzac Day on April 25th. It just shows how different moments in history have shaped their national identities. This brings us to a really crucial distinction, especially with the United States. You see, November 11th is also Veterans Day there, but the focus is different. While Remembrance Day is a solemn occasion specifically to honor the war dead, Veterans Day is about celebrating all who have served in the armed forces, both the living and the deceased. And it turns out the poppy isn't the only flower of remembrance out there. Other nations have their own unique floral symbols. In France, you'll see the blue cornflower, the Bleudeck de France. In Serbia, people wear Natalie's Ramonda, which is a flower that symbolizes resilience. And in Romania, it's the Romanian peony. Each flower tells a similar story of loss and memory, but through its own unique national lens. So whether it's a single flower on a jacket, a national holiday, or just a quiet moment of reflection, this day is so much more than a date on the calendar. It's an active practice, a form of collective memory, a living tradition that connects our present all the way back to the sacrifices of the past.
Which kind of leaves us with this final thought. How does a memory of this scale, of this much sorrow, stay alive for generations, long after the last witnesses are gone? Well, the answer seems to be right there in what we've just talked about, through simple symbols that speak volumes, rituals that give our grief a structure, and maybe most importantly, a collective willingness to just pause and remember.